Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Throwing Salmon's got selections here for Saturday, November 18th. For again today's play of the day. Quick recap what happened yesterday. We had a nice winner in college basketball with IPFW minus 3.5 at minus 102 on FanDuel. Game was close most of the way through, but IPFW broke away late as they eventually won the game by 10. So nice winner. Look for the winner here on Saturday. And for today's play of the day, going to tennis, sport we haven't covered in a while. Gonna look at a matchup, a high-profile matchup between Alcaraz and Djokovic, taking place at around 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And for this matchup, going to take the over 22.5 games at minus 132 on FanDuel. Time of recording of 2:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Covering why we're going to take the over in games for this matchup. First reason, looking at the actual history of these two players against each other. This will be the fifth career head-to-head meeting, and each of the first four meetings were absolute wars. Each of the players did win a set in the first two sets, so you have seen no straight set victories in any of these matches, whether it was a Grand Slam event or whether it was 2 out of 3. The point is, these two players, when they get together, absolutely kill each other, and I see a similar story happening here on Saturday. If you want to also look at some specific sets involved in those four head-to-head matchups in the past, there's been at least one set with at least 12 games in each of the four meetings. So the point is, you have seen a couple of marathon sets break out, and I do think if that's going to be the case, that's definitely going to benefit the over in this matchup. You actually don't even need a three-set marathon to win this bet at 22.5. It helps, but in theory, you could get there with a 7-6 and a 6-4, maybe a couple of 7-6s. The point is, you have seen a decent amount of long sets between these two players when they face off in the head-to-head, and as a result, 22.5 does seem a bit too low based on how good these players have been performing. Now, to go through the actual most recent meeting between them, it was on hard court, the only hard court meeting of their careers. It was in Cincinnati back in August, and you could argue that it was the greatest three-set match of all time. Each of the three sets had at least 12 games, and it was one of the longest matches of all time in 2 out of 3 set format. So, in the only hard court meeting, it was an absolute war where it was really just an insane battle. If you've not watched that match, I recommend you do. But the point is, nothing separated those two players in the hard court, and I do think that's going to be the case once again here on Saturday. Now, the hard courts in Turin are a lot faster. In fact, they're arguably the fastest hard courts of the entire calendar year, which means it is tougher to break players because the serves have been traveling faster, and just the overall pace on the forehands have made it more difficult to potentially get an advantage if you are on the back foot at any point in rallies. We know Alcaraz and Djokovic can really unload on the forehand and the backhand, and I do think you're going to see more holds than people anticipate for this match. But to go through the actual recent trends in Djokovic's matches, he's been winning, but not by a lot of margin. And there's been a lot of three sets involved. He just won the Paris Masters about a week or two ago, and that has carried over into this event because he has gone to a third set, a deciding set, in 6 of his last 7 matches. So when Djokovic wins, he doesn't win easily. In fact, he tends to go the extra set, and I do think you're in line to see a war between these two players. But once again, there's a couple ways to get there. Either history repeats itself and you see each of these players split the first 2 sets, and you're going to get there basically automatically if it goes to 3 sets, or maybe history repeats itself again and you see a couple of breakers, maybe a 7-5 in there, and you'll get in there in straight sets with 2 very competitive sets. Either way, you end up cashing. But the point is, there's not much separating these two players, and I do think that's going to be the case once again here on Saturday, as we see these two players have an absolute war as this matchup goes over the posted totals. Play that once again here for Saturday, November 18th is going to be on Alcaraz and Djokovic over 22.5 games at minus 132 on FanDuel. Bye, everyone.